Welcome to the DTC Insider Podcast, where online business owners come to find actionable tips and tactics to grow their businesses. Now, here's your host, Brian Roisenthal.
Real quick before we continue with the episode, let me tell you something. If you own or work for a DTC brand and you're not hitting your revenue and profitability goals, you're not alone. Things are getting harder, and what used to work doesn't anymore. That's why it's important to find a business-oriented partner that's focused on improving the levers that will change the game for your business. And believe me, it is possible. At BSR Digital, to give you an example, we have recently helped our clients generate between, listen well, 80 and 700K in extra monthly revenue. If you'd like to explore how we could do the same for you and your business, head on over to bsrdigital.com and book a call with us. Hey, welcome to another episode. As always, I'm Brian Roisenthal, your host, and today I'm going to interview Francesco Urso. He's the founder of Wolf Project, a skincare brand for men, and he's also the author of a recently launched book called Quit to Win. Amazing name, by the way. Hey, Francesco, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, good to be here.
Yeah, so I love the name, the fact that the name is Italian and you're Italian, because I studied Italian in the past, as I told you before hitting record, and it's always a great memory. I studied Italian not because I have roots in Italy, but because I love the language, I love the country, of course, the food. And since I'm from Argentina, and we have a lot of immigrants from that country as well. So amazing.
Good country to love, easy country to love.
Yeah, it is. It is actually. So why don't you start by telling the audience who you are and a little bit about your story?
Sure. So I think the story starts from when I was in Procter & Gamble, my entrepreneurial story. I was in P&G. I joined there when I was 20 years old, and I grew up in the ranks of P&G, first in finance, then in marketing. And after a while, I understood that I went to Russia. I worked 3 years in Russia as a marketing director, then in China in beauty care. Loved it, loved China, loved beauty. I loved the career I had in P&G, but somehow I understood that there was a little fire inside that I couldn't put down, and that fire was calling me to become an entrepreneur, to be an entrepreneur, probably to become the entrepreneur I always was inside. And so in 2020, I left P&G, and where I was leading Pantene. So I was doing Pantene in China in my last, the shampoo brand, in my last job. I was 30 years old and 31, and I launched Wolf Products, so a brand of skincare for men that is basically sold in the US across different channels.
Okay, interesting. So it must be crazy to be from, let's say, the Western world and live in China for a while. It's really different, right?
It's a different world, and it's a beautiful experience. I loved China. I loved discovering the country. I love discovering the people. I love the difficulty of understanding the market, because it's a completely different market. Marketing goes at a different speed. The technology is far advanced from what we have, the social media, the pure technology that you use every day. And for a curious person, it's like being in an amusement park. It's an experience. You get out of home and you're like, oh my God, I'm learning something new again every day.
Wow.
So China was fantastic. I have great memories. I would go back to living in China anytime. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. You see, I have a big smile on my face when I think about China.
Amazing. I love that. And now you live in Switzerland, right?
Yes, now I'm back home. That's where I grew up, in Switzerland. Yes, in
Is
Geneva.
Switzerland an amusement park as well?
No, Switzerland is very calm as opposed to China. The values of the country and the people that live here are very different. So we talk about predictability, stability, and these values don't go together with an amusement park, but they come with many other advantages: safety, stillness, a good calm environment where you can let your creativity spark. It's a bit of a contradiction for an entrepreneur somehow to be in Switzerland, because on one side you need that energy. And I think this energy in my case comes from my roots, from Italy, from my curiosity, for the experiences I've had. I lived around the world as well, and I was very lucky. My parents really pushed my curiosity. And I think at the end, it's a good place to be, Switzerland, because, us entrepreneurs, we have a lot going on in our minds. We are somehow tortured animals, always looking to grow, always looking to improve. We're never still. And when you are in an environment that soothes you, that calms you, that really helps me, at least, to know that nothing changes around. I can torture myself as much as I want, but I look at the lake. Geneva is a beautiful lake, and it's always the same. The streets are always clean, and the trains are on time, and the stuff works. And that gives me a lot of stability and
I want
safety.
to move to Switzerland, man. It's where I live is all the opposite. So I will cry if I continue down that path. So yeah.
Ah,
So I know you wrote a book, as I say in
yeah,
the intro. Congrats. I know it's a
thank you.
recently released book, and it's about breaking the chains of the corporate world and becoming an entrepreneur. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The transition from corporate to entrepreneur is a tough one. And I think some entrepreneurs, or many entrepreneurs, can relate to that, because most of us left a job to launch something. It's not super common, the story of I left university and I launched immediately something. So many of us have gone through that transformation. And what I found out is that there were not a lot of resources detailing the fears that I felt. So I remember there were some blog posts about, but that's basically it. There are many books about corporate, Good to Great, many other things like this. There are books about startups, and you know them, the lean startup, the hard thing about hard thing, the truth, the Horowitz book. Uh, but the move from one to other, there was nothing. And I found myself, sorry, I'm about to sneeze. I'm trying to,
No worries.
and
I
I,
see that time the right sneeze. So if I sneeze now,
voila.
that'll be it for the episode.
There was, I found many of my colleagues and my friends asking me about this transition, asking me about the fears, asking me about how did you do financially? Were you afraid to fail? Are you still afraid to fail? How did you find the time to start this? How do you manage the time now? What if it doesn't work? Can you go back to corporate? What will you do? And there were so many unknown questions, and I basically started writing 10 pages, 20 pages for my friends. They would come for dinner, and I would like, guys, I'm not going to tell you again the same story. Here are 10 pages I've written. Then they became 20, 30, 50, until the book Quit to Win. And winning, let's be clear, winning is not about making an exit. Winning is not about having a gigantic business. Winning is about following your passions and being true to yourself. And there are many people in corporate that are true to themselves, and they can stay in corporate and be happy there. It was not my case. So my case was to quit to win at life, or try to be winning at life in a way. So that's the book about, and I just launched it. We had an in-store event here. It's on Amazon, and I'm getting good feedback so far. So that makes me very happy.
Amazing. Of course, it's everything we will mention here in the episode that just started, and it's already very interesting. Everything will be in the show notes. So I'll point you guys listening or watching this in the right direction by the end of the
Thank
episode,
you.
in case you're not already there. But it's great already. So let's talk about your brand now. I know Wolf Project is a skincare brand. I love the imagery, the website. You have put a lot of work, or I can tell at least that you have thought
Yeah.
they have put a lot of work on the website. It's super well done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We did put a lot of work in it.
Yeah, and it's not only the website, it's the brand itself, the products. You recently signed a contract with Nordstrom in the US. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I know that there are many people in the audience that are looking to getting some of those contracts signed, and they would love to hear from you how the heck that happened, how you made that happen. And then if it's something that is going as expected, or the ups and downs, not only about Nordstrom, but
Of
a
course.
contract of that type? Some companies are overwhelmed with some of these type of contracts, and some others are the opposite. So please.
Nordstrom came year 3 or year 4 of our existence. So Nordstrom, for those who don't know, Nordstrom is one of the biggest department stores in the US. They have 80 to 90 retail physical locations, big department store, premium. Of course, fashion is a big part of that, the department store. Men's fashion, women's fashion. They also have a big beauty, perfume store, and I think also some home stuff. So typically, one of the most premium department store in the US, comparable to Galeries Lafayette, to Harrods in UK. Obviously, they had a big men's beauty part, and so Nordstrom was in our dream list. Nordstrom was in our dream list to be distributed there, especially because being distributed in Nordstrom means, and succeeding in Nordstrom gives us high chances to be distributed in then more mass retailers. So this was part of my strategy, of my dream strategy of starting from selected distribution, department stores as selected distribution, then down to mass. So Nordstrom was there, I wanted it. Now, how to get there is, and then how to succeed is a whole different game. I was lucky because one of my advisors that was my advisor, of course, for that goal, was connected to Nordstrom. So she had some contacts because she had already done business with them. So it started from an introduction. Actually, she reached out to Nordstrom asking, would you be interested in men's skincare? So you need to always need to understand, and that's probably tip number 1, if your brand fits in the strategy of the retailer. If you sell candles and the department store or that store is deprioritizing candles, you can have the most beautiful candles in the world. You are not going to get listed in the department store because you are part of a category that they don't want to push. If you come at the wrong time, there is no chances, because if they've just listed 3-4 other brands, there is no chances. I was lucky because men's was growing. Men was growing a lot for them. Men's beauty was growing a lot. And so I passed through the first check. I presented to them the brand, I sent them products, everything was good. But then I think another lesson is of perseverance. So I think I checked once. I sent probably 18 reminders and follow-ups emails over the course of 6 months to the buyer. She's fantastic. I love her. She receives probably 50 brands a week that reach out to her to be listed and to be able to have a chance to present it. So you're never the number 1 priority. Even if you are L'Oreal, you're one of the many priority. A buyer is always solicited by hundreds of brands. So I think there is a lesson there in perseverance. There is a lesson there in not giving up, and also in remove your ego. When somebody doesn't answer you 10 times, you could be tempted to say, you know what, fuck off. I'm not gonna. There is a basic respect that should be given to somebody when you write 10 times at least, and you write nicely. But here it was not about respect. The buyer was not disrespecting me. The buyer was just busy, and I kept on going like a diesel engine. You go, and every time I would have a different hook to the email until one hook worked. So I went to Nordstrom in the US, and this is probably another story, which is creativity, the third story. So the first one was strategy, the second was perseverance, the third one is creativity. I was in New York, or I was in LA. I was in LA, I went to a Nordstrom, I took a picture of the shelf, and I photoshopped my brand on the shelf. And I put my brand there, and I sent an email because I was like, I've tried all the hooks. I'm gonna try fun. I'm gonna poke at the buyer. So I sent a picture to the buyer saying, hi, wouldn't it be, don't you see how the shelf would look great with my brand on it? All the brands look the same, look at mine. And she finally replied, I think 18 emails after, 6 months after, saying, you're right, let's talk. And I was like, oh my God, she replied. Did you know? I was like, oh my God, she replied. We got on a call, and But that was not the end of the story. We got on a call and she was like, yep, I agree the shelf would look much better with you. Let's go, let's start. 2 months later, she goes on maternity leave. Boof, new buyer, dead again. New buyer, not the priority. And then finally, anyway, in October, we were able to list the brand. And that's how we get in. But I think there are 3 lessons for all the other entrepreneurs is strategy, not giving up, creativity. And that's how we got in Nordstrom. And we got distributed in 20 stores initially with all of our SKUs, with all our products. It's going very well because the buyer is very happy. And at the end, she's the one that decides whether your brand stays or goes. She's very happy. She wants to expand us to many stores. Challenges, you asked. One thing in business, in my business, like in the books, we believe that just putting the book on the shelf in a store or putting my beauty products in a store is enough. That's not true. The product doesn't fly off the shelf. And there is a little test that you can do when you go to the store, when you go to a supermarket, especially beauty, not to food, beauty books. Look at the dust on top of the product. So you take a product and you look at the dust on top of the bottle, and you will be surprised how much dust there is on most of the products because they don't sell very often. They sell one bottle, I mean, maybe one a week. It depends. In Target, obviously, it sells more. In Nordstrom, it sells a bit less, depending on the product. But the product doesn't fly off the shelf. So you need to push, you need to organize, you need to do sampling, you need to convince the seller, the assistant in store to explain to customers to propose your product. So it's a lot of work.
That's a separate game. The first one, and I love the breakdown of the 4, I think it was 3 or 4 steps.
There you go.
That's amazing. Thank you for that. I love it. That's only to get in. But then once you're in, you have somebody else to, let's say, persuade or to get on your side to promote the product for you. So
Yeah.
what are you guys doing for that? Because I think it's an ongoing thing. It's not a one-off.
Of course. You, where are my, look. So here I have all the business cards of every seller. They're here, of every store. This is the beauty assistant of every store. Here I have New York, California, another one in New York, another store in California, Texas. I visited every single store where I'm distributed, almost every single store, let's be honest. I introduced myself. I went there with my backpack without a meeting. And I was like, hi, I'm Francesco. I'm the founder of Wolf Project. The brand is right there. Can I explain you the story of the brand? And maybe I had to come back because the right person was not there. So I came back the day after, or the afternoon, or 2 days after. I needed to convince the buyer, the seller, in this case, the beauty responsible, that my brand was the best. And I was the hungriest. And that's what I've done. So that's step 1. You need to convince them. It's a human business. Beauty is about somebody telling you that brand is good until you are Nivea and everybody buys it. So yeah, that's something I've done, and now I keep on calling them and tell me, you had
You said something about, I was the hungriest. I recently read a post on LinkedIn. I think it was from Will Smith or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I will make sure to mention him in the show notes because he recently wrote a post that was something about the classic saying of surround yourself with people smarter than you. And he said, my take is surround yourself with people who are hungrier than you. He said the same thing.
I think hunger goes a long way. I think hunger goes a long way, and hunger translates into determination, translates into going the next, the unreasonable mile. And yeah, hunger goes a very long way.
I love it.
I mean, you gotta eat, right? So a hungry man will look for food more than a non-hungry man. That's obvious, and I think it's a very good metaphor for business.
It's amazing.
And yeah, I agree with that.
Talking about hungry.
And just a thought on that. To me, I also saw in work when I was in P&G. I managed tens and tens of people. Hunger translates into willingness to learn. Somehow my best performers in my teams were not the smartest, but they were the ones that wanted to learn. They were the most coachable. And I remember I would give, you recognize when somebody wants to learn. And when somebody wants to learn, you dare to give them tougher feedback because you feel that they can take it. You know, when you give feedback to somebody, you also tame it to the level of feedback you think the other person can take. So I know if I know she's very sensitive or he's very sensitive, I'm gonna go soft. If I know that he's hungry, I will go brutal. I will tell him straight because I know he will take it to learn and to grow. He will not think, oh, what a piece of shit. My boss told me this, this, and this, and it's not true. No, he will like, okay, let me take the 90% of it because I need to improve. And that's hunger to me. That's hungry to learn. And my best performers were always the ones that started from the bottom, started with, sorry, I give you another example. I got to China and I remember my boss's boss told me, you need to fire this guy. You need to fire this guy. We tried, give him a last chance, and then I think he's gone. And I saw him and I was like, I saw the reasons why I would say that. But I was like, hold on, he's like, the guy is just never down. He's unbreakable. He's poorly performing, but he's also not aware of his strength. But the tougher I go on him, the more he comes back. And so I went to my boss and I'm like, give me 3 months. I think there is something. The guy is now, he eventually left the P&G. He left and he's now one of the big bosses of TikTok in China. And he was fantastic. He started from, he started the race from behind, but man, he was hungry. Man, he didn't want to give up. So that I love.
Love that. So as we were saying, speaking about being hungry, I know that access to capital has been a challenge for many brands lately.
Yeah.
Things are not the way they used to be. So how has this impacted your business strategy and what adjustments have you made to, let's say, ensure sustainability?
Why is business capital dry in this moment? Is especially for brands, for retail brands. I think this is my take. When we say dry, we mean mostly business angels and venture capital. What business angels and venture capital tried to do was to translate the thesis that has been validated in tech to brands, to retail. The thesis was, I'm going to invest extremely high risk capital in something that can do 100x. To do 100x, you need to have a gigantic exit or an IPO. It worked in tech. We had so many exits, we had so many IPOs, and we know them all. And then we're like, okay, let me try to apply the same logic to another business. IPOs in brands are not common. A brand to create that exponential growth that a VC seeks for is extremely unlikely because to build awareness, it's much slower. You don't have the flywheel effect that you can have with tech or it's much slower. When is the last time you recommended a beauty product or a food? It doesn't happen. But when you find a cool website or a cool app and you're like, oh my God, I wish all my friends were in this. So it propagates much faster. So the investment thesis, I think was not valid. So it's not like capital is dry. I think the investment thesis was wrong. Hence, now capital is dry. So we cannot complain. No brands have, hundreds of brands have had the success of tech companies. So first, I don't tell myself, oh, poor me, there is no capital. I'm like, this is normality. This is normality. To build a brand, it takes 10 years. They made us believe that it would take 2 years. the typical VC question is, how long does it take you to get to $100 million? And if you said more than 2.5 years, they were, or 3 years, they were like, too much. Tell me, I think I can count on my hands how many brands have got to 100 million in 3 years. And I think it's one that is still alive, because also the other ones collapsed.
Yeah.
So
Let's not forget that many non-e-commerce brands like tech companies, etc., many of them didn't even make any money at all. They were just
yeah,
relying on the value on data and many things, users, traction, but no money.
but
Actually,
eventually that turned into huge money.
yeah,
YouTube didn't make any revenue. Amazon didn't make any revenue.
exactly.
YouTube is a beautiful example. YouTube is a fantastic example of a perfect VC play. YouTube lives on advertising, obviously. To make money on advertising, you need to have a sizable audience. Otherwise, as an advertiser, I'm not going to advertise on YouTube if there are no viewers. So to get to that money, to get to that business model, to that profitability, you need a big audience. How to create a big audience? You need to invest. So there is a thesis there of investing a lot to get an audience to then get money back. On brands, it doesn't work like that. It's not like, yeah, I can have a bit of economies of scale because of production, but brands need to make money initially and then later. I need to gather a bit of awareness, but yes, awareness is expensive. So to answer your question, I think now it's normality. Now it's hard, and it should be hard to build a retail brand. And the way it impacted my company is that we have moved to profitability much faster. We have deprioritized D2C because it's probably we were not as good as we should have been, but making money on the first order on D2C with the CAC on Facebook and TikTok and Google being so high is hard. And we didn't crack that machine. I think there is still a big chances that that machine works, but it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, which we didn't have. I didn't raise 20 million, so it impacted my business in a way that it brought us back, I think, to normality, and to building slower, healthier fundamentals.
Since you're not prioritizing DDC, I wanted to understand what's your biggest channel right now. I mean, you're Nordstrom, but where else can people buy from you?
Amazon is big for us. D2C is still quite sizable, so it's not as big as Amazon. And now obviously the retail is becoming bigger and bigger. So I would say right now it's Amazon, followed by D2C, followed by retail. Probably retail is now bigger. So it's retail is evolving because obviously Nordstrom and a few other things we have.
Right. So you mentioned talking about DDC real quickly. You mentioned profitability on the first order, and a few months ago I had the pleasure of interviewing Neil Goyal at Tapcart. He's great not only because he belongs to Tapcart, but he provides a lot of value on LinkedIn. I'm not sure he's in other social channel, but on LinkedIn he provides a lot of value, not only related to Tapcart, but in general. And we were discussing just that, like profitability is the name of the game for brands. As you said, it should have always been because brands need to be profitable, but there are some factors that happened after COVID, especially that brands for some reason were looking for growth without looking at their bottom line as much. So right now they are focused on making money. Many of them, or most of them, need to make money on the first order. For some of them, especially those selling products at a low average order value, a low ticket product, is not uh, something that is viable because there are some minimum costs. Like you said, if you acquire people through paid channels, let's say ads, the costs are the costs. You can improve, but
Yeah.
it's a race to the bottom. You cannot improve. You're not in control. It's an auction. You can improve better creatives, better whatever, but the cost won't go to zero. It will be one cost. It will go up in high seasons or commercial dates, and then it will go down, but to a limit. However, there's opportunity in increasing the value, not only in the first order, but in your industry, in beauty, with the subscriptions. Again, it's not magic, it's not something overnight, but that's probably where the value is. Now, there's a contradiction, and I will love your take on that. Not a contradiction, but a need for many brands, which is cash flow. You say, Brian, that's all nice what you're saying. We are not going to make any money on the first order, but we're going to make money on the third. That will be in, I don't know, let's say 3, 5 months from now. How do we, how do we build a
Mhm.
money making machine and not break in the not go bankrupt in the middle? So that's probably where brands are now, trying to decrease the time between purchases, increase the value upfront, and that's probably where things lead. Have you considered that part, like not making profits on the first order, and have you analyzed like when would be feasible for you guys to make money?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I don't think that every brand and every product is subscribable. We wish, but not. When you buy an iPhone cable, you buy an iPhone cable. I am throwing it out there, but there are not many brands that have a subscription model that is also based on consumer insights. So subscription need to start from a consumer need of a repeat purchase. Subscription frequency need to match usage, because the worst situation is to continue feed a customer every 2 months, every month with a toothbrush, and you don't change it every month. So eventually you stop and you churn. So the subscriptions to me, and we spent a lot on subscription. I think I spent, I don't know, a lot depending on the point of view, but I think I spent more than $1 million of advertising on subscription on Meta. And some things work, some things don't work. I didn't have a subscription understanding before. I didn't understand all the pieces of the subscription puzzle. First order CAC, frequency, average order value. Do you go for a bigger initial ticket and then the second or the third? What's the right time frame? It's not something that there is no usage instruction booklet of subscriptions. There is no subscription guru for your business. I get pitched so many times, oh, I've done subscription for that, but you haven't done it for my business. It's an extremely delicate wheel. And when it works, it's fantastic, because there is no better feeling, and I've had that feeling, of seeing month 2 with all the new users that you have acquired in that month and the previous cohort that comes for free. It's a magical feeling. You're like, fuck, I had like $100,000 of income, of revenue, that I didn't buy because I bought it last month. Now the problem is, how much did you pay for that last month? And how long does it take to make up that investment? But it's a beautiful feeling, and that's a potential flywheel. So something that becomes bigger and bigger. Of course, yes, we tried it. I believe in my type of business, which is skincare for men, there is a way to do it, and I'm pretty sure I know the way. When I decided to deprioritize D2C, it's because it was a very rational choice. I would see our cash burn. I would see the time it would take us to get that wheel perfect. We didn't have that time. And so I decided to prioritize. But we had a few funnels that were incredible. And right now, if I look at the retention, the beauty about subscription as well is that the more time passes, the more data you have, because you can look at the churn, you can look at the retention, which is the opposite of churn. It's the same thing. And you're like, oh, my strategy a year ago worked eventually. I just had to be more patient, because look at that lifetime value. And we have a few funnels where I think our CAC was 40, 50, which is not insignificant. It's quite a high CAC, but our lifetime value after 11 months, 12 months is like 180, 200. And I'm like, wow, that's that's a funnel where you need to put more money, pour more money, and until it works. So yeah, subscription can, but with the caveat of it needs to be based on some consumer need. To understand that consumer need takes time. It takes time. The frequency, the product. I give you an example. We found out that the anti-age funnel was the one with the highest probability or the highest lifetime value. We thought it was the eye masks. We went in and we did a big subscription funnel on eye masks because they were the most fidgety. You can use many more eye masks because they're smaller, you put them here, than the full face mask. But somehow, and again, I will say something that you will say, obviously, yes, but it was not obvious to me. People that have anti-age issues, wrinkles, they're more loyal than the people that are circles. I didn't know that. It took me $300,000 of advertising to understand it. And I was like,
That's why it's
costly
important.
lesson.
Yeah, that's why it's important. We, with our clients, at least, we advise them all the time to use post-purchase surveys to talk with our clients. We have had a lot of people here in the show, even high eight-figure brands, and the CEO pick, on a handful of clients every single month, and they call them and they ask them questions strategically to
Yeah,
learn
amazing.
that. So that's something that I advise every single founder. I know it's easy to say. Some founders, even the ones I work with, are uncomfortable by the fact of, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to make them uncomfortable
No,
or screw things up. Let's say,
I
oh,
think it's a great idea.
it's something that it's the basics, like
Yeah, I agree.
heard
I agree.
someone say, like
I agree.
successful never skip the basics. So it's something that it's a must. Otherwise, as you said, you learn the hard way by spending a lot of money,
Yeah.
and some people don't even learn by doing that. So I'm happy that you did. So I wanted to ask you something, and I forgot. Hey, something about you said about the masks, but no worries, we can go. But yeah, I was going to ask to say the following: that your category, and correct me if I'm wrong, requires something else that other product categories don't, which is activation. People need to use what they buy, right?
Yeah.
Because for some other things, it's like straightforward. I don't know. I buy a T-shirt. It's highly likely that I buy that I will use it. Of course, probably not, but yes. But skincare, like adding value through content, like the one people don't want to waste time. So and they need to remember. So tips to remembering to use it, try to make it fun or attractive, or to give them a strong reason to do it than the classic night routine or morning or
Yeah.
whatever. So you need to like activate customers so they use it so you can then pitch them a second purchase and so on.
Yeah. That's hard.
Yes. But
It's really hard. Yes.
yeah, I recently discussed here on the show as well with one, it was a nine-figure brand, and the others it could be seven-figure brand as well. But both of them, two of them, recently said that they leverage long-form content for that, for awareness, but also for education, not
Yeah.
only ads. And makes sense. Whenever someone, I recently bought a coffee machine, and I'm like a child playing with that. My wife is saying like, "I'm here. It's just a coffee machine." But I'm, watching the other day, my wife was saying like, "What are you doing?" And I was like at night at the bed with my phone, and it was like the classic meme. What she thinks I'm doing, and then what I was doing,
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that. I saw that. I saw that.
I'm watching a tutorial on how to use this mode of this. Yes, stop with that. It's a coffee machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
I have
Yeah. I do the same.
and for using it better.
I do the same. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great idea, and education is pivotal. It's hard to find a balance. I found it hard to find the balance between not stalking customer too much, not too many emails, not too many, and also it requires a ton of content, education,
Yeah.
and every brand says we need to create a content machine. It's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to create a content machine. It's very hard.
I don't know if it's hard but it's time consuming. It requires a lot of attention, the right team. But
The right team,
I think that yes, but I think that
lot of
nowadays,
ideas.
nowadays in a digital era, I'm not affiliated with these guys, but tools like Refunnel, Saral,
Yeah,
Mini Social, or all of them allow you to, leverage the power of, people, TikTok shops, what
yeah,
they're doing with, influencers being like affiliates
I agree.
of products. So this is, we are more connected than
Yeah,
ever. And of
yeah, yeah,
course,
of course.
we need to break through the noise with different things. But I know that in a journey there are no regrets. Sometimes there could be, but if you had to start over, what could you do differently?
I would go. Uh, Many founders say, "Oh, I would choose a different vertical. I would choose a different business because this is too hard." And most founders I talk to, they say that. No, I have a friend of mine. They launched some bikes, some e-bikes, and we were recently talking, and they were like, "Why did I choose to sell e-bikes?" She was telling me, uh, "I think we choose what we are passionate by, what keeps us up at night in a good way." So I'm proud of what I've done. I'm comfortable inside with what I've done. In hindsight, I'm not a person that looks too much at the past and says, "Oh, I should have done this," because I am confident that I try to take the best decision I can take with the best information I have at the moment and the best emotions I feel. Every decision is driven by objective information, by objective facts, and the emotion, the way you interpret it. I start from the assumption I'm not particularly gifted and smart, but I'm not either stupid. So I'm not necessarily very, very poor in decision making. So I trust my decisions. In There were some decisions that were eventually not good. So uh, growing, we had just done a seed funding, and I think I spent too much too quickly. So it's not about spending too much too quickly, but it's about having too much hunger for growth. I think I would go slower. Uh, we There is a running metaphor that I've just come up with recently. I started running a year ago, and I am really into running now, and I love it. And when you run, I don't know if you run, but when you run, you're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now yes.
I do, I do.
Voila. So when you go out running, and I like doing interval trainings in the track. So you go to the track, and I do, on the weekend I do longer runs. But maybe you have somebody next to you that you don't know that is running faster than you or slower than you. And there is the competitive part of us that says, I need to run faster. But the truth is that you have no idea when he started running, what type of run is he doing? Is he doing sprints or is he doing slow run? How genetically prone is he to running? Because I am quite bulky. I'm 87 kilos, 190 pounds. I was a water polo player. I don't have the body of the runner. So there are genetical differences. I don't know how much he has trained. I don't know which type of run he's doing. I don't know if he's injured that day or not. I don't know if he's out for a run just to get his mind off or if he's out for a competitive run. So competing with that guy is useless. It's stupid. It's purely stupid. It's objectively stupid. So when we compare each other to other brands, and they're like, oh, he's doing that, I need to do it. Oh, they've grown 200%, I'm only growing 100% or 20%, whatever. We take stupid decisions because you have no idea what part of the growth story is, what funding he has, how he got that funding. I had to sweat for every dollar I raised, and maybe that person, he knew a VC and they gave him 5 million. So long story short, I think I've taken some decisions out of fear of missing out on a growth. And I shouldn't have taken those decisions. I should have just said, keep your eyes focused. What is your strategy? You need to compete against yourself yesterday. You don't need to compete against that brand. You don't need to compete against that brand. You need to compete against yourself yesterday. And that's what you do in running. In running, you try to get a time on the next 10K race that is a tiny bit better than the previous one. And you're happy. I've just done a 10K 3 days ago, and it was my personal best. And I was the happiest kid ever. I was 800 in the race. Couldn't care less out of 3,000. But it was my PB. So I would go back in these last 4 years and look much more at myself and say, do I believe in this strategy? Do I believe this strategy will bring me to a better place than today? Then follow it. Don't care what type of strategy is doing. They were all doing free trials. Don't care. This is not your objective. It's easier said than done. But I would look much more at myself. Yeah, I think that's the biggest, that's what I would do.
I love it. I think in many things that we have covered today, we think in similar ways. I always say something similar to what you said, but you said it better. So thank you for that. I will keep that because I love my wife. I'm talking a lot about my wife. Don't tell her, but but
I do the same. I do
I
the same. Don't worry.
she complains a lot. Like I have a metaphor for everything. It's like this glass broke. I have a metaphor. So that for some reason I found over the years that sticks with me, and I remember things thanks to that.
Me too.
Even
I see
though
what you
people
mean.
hate me for that, so I love the fact that you did that because I love those kind of things. So thank you for sharing that. I know we are on time, so I want to be respectful with your schedule. So before we go, I want you to take, if you want, just 1 minute to talk a little bit more about your book. It's recently launched again, Quit to Win. It's all about what we talked in the beginning, but what are a few of some of the key topics that you cover in the book that might be interesting for everyone listening or watching this?
In the first part of the book, I explain that you may be in a situation in life where you technically feel you have everything, but somehow you're not happy. And I think that resonates, when you feel you have golden handcuffs and for some reason there is one aspect that I think is key in the book is really the dichotomy between money and meaning. I've found out that with much less money in my bank account, in my salary, I can be much happier inside, differently happy. And I give a lot of examples of that. And hopefully this resonates or inspires some people when somehow I learned that a lot of sacrifices that I've done, superficial sacrifices, let's not compare to people that are in real need and they are struggling, but you can travel less, you go less to restaurants because you don't want to tap in your savings, you need to live on a lower income. Somehow eventually the detrimental happiness I got from that is very small, but the incremental happiness I got from waking up to a job I love, from waking up chasing a dream, is huge. Is huge, and that's worth much more than any money. I remember I went to give a speech to a company about Wolf Project, and I arrived. It was a big corporate, and I arrived a bit earlier, and I went to my wife, like you. I have many examples of my wife, and I was like, "Give me $1 million a year. I'm not going back to corporate." Now, maybe one day I will have to go back to corporate, at least in not that corporate. I was like, oh my God, I'm so happier earning 1/10 of what I was earning before, but doing something that is, to me, meaningful. I'm not saying at all that what they do is not meaningful. To them it is, but to me it wasn't. And that's something I explore a lot in the book. There is other parts that I believe that will resonate, which is the fears, the doubts that one may have. Will it work? Will it not work? Am I too old to start something new? How do you find the time? Many even entrepreneurs to this, they believe I don't have time. I was running a company, full growth, and I was writing a book at the same time. Many people ask me, how did you do? I've done an exercise back in the days of self-timing. I don't know if you've ever done this, but it's quite insightful. When you time, but really with a clock, your workday. And there is an example in the book where I've done this day. And you need to be very harsh with how much of that time you've done was productive. You give coefficients. Emails, 50%. You have a meeting with somebody in your team. It's very productive time for him. You have a one-to-one and you coach him. Is it really productive for me? Maybe 25%. I am working on a document that I need to send to Nordstrom, 100% productive. I take a break, the watch stops. Somebody interrupts me to say hi in the office, the watch stops. I go pee or I go for a walk. So eventually, the effective productive time of my day in P&G back then, honestly, was like the effective productive time, stopwatch, like NBA, when they stop the watch for the action, was 3 hours. So when people tell me I work 15 hours a day, bullshit, you don't. Nobody does. No human is able to stay focused and productive and create output for 15 hours a day. You may have, maybe you're fantastic and you have 5 hours a day. When you work 6 hours, you're a machine of 6 good hours, 6 good hours. You're a machine. 6 productive hours can generate so much output. The problem is working 6 hours is extremely hard. So how did I write the book, for example, or how can somebody start a new project? 1 hour a day of productive time can create gigantic outcomes. And there is a chapter in the book. This is the cover of the book, Quit to Win. There is a chapter of the book that is called You Are One Netflix Away. And that to me very interesting because nobody has time. I don't have time for this. Oh, I'm so busy. But then you have 1 hour at night to watch Netflix. I'm like, hold on. 1 hour? I launched Wolf Project on the side of P&G. I started conceptualizing Wolf Project every night. People were like, you never watched Game of Thrones. I was like, no, I've never watched one episode of Game of Thrones because it was big when I was launching Wolf Project. But I've created a brand on the side. So they're like, how did you write the book? Every morning, 5 to 6, before the kids wake up. So it's quite interesting to me. And that's a universal insight of managing time.
Yeah, I guess
and finding time.
It's very interesting, and I'm all about productivity, like consuming that content and trying to get better. I love that topic, and we can record many
Try to
episodes.
time yourself. Try to time yourself with a timer. Like
I heard
I will send you,
I
yeah.
use time blocks, but that's a different thing. Like time blocks on the calendar to block my time
Yeah,
for things, but that's a totally different exercise, and I will love doing that. I will actually get back to you on my time. I don't know what's going to be what the result is going to be, but I'm sure that, as I said when I started running or whatever, I do many things. It's the first race, the first time I track myself like that. So I know I will say for everyone that wants to try it, don't be harsh on yourself, right? Like it's the
I
first.
agree.
You're honest with yourself, and then you can improve if you want.
Yeah, of course.
So I will take you on that, and I will do it definitely. So real quick before we go, besides your awesome book, which we will include, of course, in the show notes for everyone, it's on the ddcinsider.com. If you find the episode, unless you are already there, you will find everything we discussed, including everything he mentioned. Of course, his book Quit to Win and many other things he mentioned as well. So do you have any other book besides yours to add to the books mentioned of 2024 once the year is over?
Yes, I really liked, and I think it had a big impact on my life, Atomic Habits. I think it has been named a few times on this podcast.
I love it.
I love that book. I love it. It's extremely practical. It doesn't repeat himself. I like the style of James Clear. He's quite humble, and I really like how non-arrogant and relatable he is, and at the same time extremely deep and pertinent. I like The Shoe Dog. Love The Shoe Dog, one of my favorite books of the founder of Nike, and because it shows that Nike was not a straight line. There were so many times where he's
Broke
quite
every time.
humble. Yeah, he's quite humble and honest, and I think that's how we are covered and
He was
inundated
hungry.
by content.
He was hungry.
Yeah, And he was hungry and he never gave up. So I really like that. I think I read it twice. So these are the two books that top of mind, they come to me. And when it comes to business, I read lots of novels because you don't think. When us founders read Shoe Dog, it's almost like work. So to me, reading a novel about two people that fall in love, it's also fun, and or thrillers, and it's sometimes I read a lot of that as well because it's disconnect the brain for the half an hour you read, and we need that.
Yeah,
Mental health is delicate.
it is. So I really loved having you on the show. I had a conversation planned originally, but we went so much more in depth, and I really appreciate that. I really
Thank
enjoyed
you,
the
Brian.
conversation.
Me
So
too.
thank you. And before we go, where can people go to learn more about you and the company?
For the company, you can go on wolfproject.co. The website for me, it's francescourso.com. I just created my own website. I'm very proud. So
Nice.
it's mostly for the book, francescourso.com.
Amazing. Again, Francesco, it was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
This episode was brought to you by BSR Digital. We help DTC brands grow through paid ads and email marketing campaigns. If you'd like us to help your business grow, head on over to bsrdigital.com and schedule a call with us.